For about 6 million years, we have been living on this living planet. Besides the natural world, extraordinarily complex yet interconnected. With creatures leading their own lives, but lives that are connected intimately to the lives of others around them. Able to supply us with fresh water, abundant fish and meat, timber to build our homes and to keep us warm, fertile land, pollinators for our crops, even able to regulate the seasons and bring dependable weather. And we have been using Earth's resources for a very long time, which makes us now the dominant force of change on the planet. But it has not always been this way.
Within Earth's 4.5 billion year history, it has been changing dramatically within the past million years. From changes in its climate, all the way to extinction events and difference in the species. This is the story of our changing planet and how we came to be as we are today. For a person very interested in the natural world and everyone else, the story of evolution is an extraordinary one. But what comes in mind is that what was on Earth before life itself?
Imagine that you have had a movie that shows the history of Earth from its beginning to the present day, as if a giant camera in space had recorded pictures of Earth over the last 4.5 billion years. If you put the movie in fast forward, you could see lots of action and lots of change. You would see that our planet has undergone remarkable changes over billions of years, making it the Earth we know today. But before life on Earth appeared, it was very different from our Earth today. The early Earth experienced frequent impacts from asteroids and meteorites and had much more frequent volcanic eruptions. There was no life on Earth for the first billion years because the atmosphere was not suitable for life. Earth's first atmosphere had lots of water vapor, but had almost no oxygen, without which there was still very little that could live on Earth. However, the Sun changed all that. Radiation from the Sun caused water vapor molecules to split apart into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen escaped back into outer space, yet the oxygen accumulated in the atmosphere. It was this that allowed life on Earth to flourish on this living planet. About 2.4 billion years ago, a type of organism called cyanobacteria evolved on the early Earth and began carrying out photosynthesis, using carbon dioxide and energy from the sun to produce sugar and oxygen. The cyanobacteria were very simple organisms but performed an important role in changing Earth's early atmosphere. They carried out photosynthesis to produce the materials they needed to grow, giving off oxygen to the atmosphere as they did so. Very simple cells lived on Earth for the first few billion years. Yet they evolved to something such as ourselves and the creatures we see today. Besides changes in life and the atmosphere, other changes have also happened since the Earth was first formed. Early volcanic eruptions on Earth released large amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere. The water vapor slowly condensed and returned to Earth's surface as rainfall. This formed the oceans, and it was the beginning of the water cycle on Earth. And events like rainfall and storms next began to change the Earth's surface through weathering and erosion. Life has undoubtedly served to create more and more comfortable conditions for life itself on this planet, creating the soils on the planet, a stable atmosphere, and better conditions for successor species.
Among the most complex of creatures that appeared in the seas many years ago were the complex Echinoderms, sea urchins, starfishes, and sand dollars. This here is a sand dollar fossil. It wasn't, however, until 65 million years ago that two sand dollars appeared during the Pleistocene, or the first epoch of the age of mammals. And now sand dollars have been so successful that there is now over 250 species of them.
Having evolved to such unique extents, sand dollars now play an important role in their local ecosystems by controlling populations of smaller invertebrates and serving as food for some larger organisms.
These are two specimens of sand dollars I've got, a cake urchin on one side and a Sculpteticus arteritus on one side. Over the last 50 million years or so, sand dollars have developed all kinds of clever adaptations to their harsh environments, like consuming and storing metal particles to control their buoyancy, much in the way that a scuba diver dons a weight belt to stay down. But the question that may appear in your minds is that where did these creatures first get their name? The term sand dollar derives from the skeleton of these creatures, or their test, after dead individuals are washed ashore and lack their velvet-like skin of spines, and has been bleached white by the sunlight, looking more like this, like a coin.
Before sand dollars, however, another group of echinoderms had already evolved. They are the most common animals we know in the sea stars.
Of course, like sea urchins and sand dollars, sea stars are also among the echinoderms. Starfishes indeed and British stars, collectively known as asteriazoans, are a diverse and ecologically successful group of spiny-skinned echinoderms that first appeared in fossil records around 480 million years ago in the Ordovician period. And sea stars play an important role in ecosystems. Sea stars are important members of the marine environment and are considered a keystone species. A keystone species preys on animals that have no other natural predators, and if they are removed from the environment, their prey will increase in numbers and may drive out other species. So these unique creatures are indeed helpers of the environment.
As the oceans diversified with life, a group of organisms that to this day dominate the planet started evolving around 475 million years ago, even before plants began to really diversify on land. These were the insects.
The insects I've been collecting in the past few years, their ancestors likely originated during the Ordovician period. However, insect flight likely emerged around 406 million years ago. Around the same time, plants began to really diversify on land and grow upward into forests. The explosive diversification of insects into most of the major groups we see today happened before the emergence of flowering plants, angiosperms.
Insects took to the empty skies sometime between 300 and 360 million years ago, long before birds, bats, or pterosaurs. Wings allowed them to conquer new habitats, and insecta quickly established themselves as one of the most diverse and successful animal classes. A position they still hold today. They have also now become one of the most important creatures in an ecosystem. Helping to pollinate plants, decompose organic matter, and in some cases, keep other species under control. The evolution of life was the greatest event in our planet's history, and there are some very unique creatures that have evolved in small islands, very different and extraordinary than their mainland cousins. An example of such unique creatures are found in the islands of Malta. And no one can explain about its wilderness than an environmentalist that lives there.
Malta used to be connected to Europe via Sicily. However, as sea levels rose at the end of the last glacial maximum, we got cut off from the mainland and became an island. Many species living in Malta at that time had to adapt and become their own subspecies or species. Here in Malta, we don't have many megafauna. We had elephants and hippos, bears, deer, and even wolves, which had to adapt themselves, dwarf in size, because of the limited resources here on the island. Of course, those animals that I mentioned are no longer with us, as they have died out due to natural causes and even human cause. Nowadays, the majority of endemic species are invertebrates, such as insects. But one very famous example of a vertebrate is the Maltese wall lizard, which has different subpopulations on different islands around the Maltese archipelago, with each subspecies having its own color, size, and even behavior. Another vertebrate species is the painted frog, which is subendemic to Malta as it is found on Malta and nearby Sicily. This frog is the only native amphibian found on our islands. Along with the frog, there is also its predator, the Maltese freshwater crab, an endemic decapod found in the annual streams of Malta.
A considerable amount of endemic species inhabit the Maltese Islands. The Maltese freshwater crab is one of them. In the 50s, the invertebrate was so abundant that freshwater crab soup was a common Maltese delicacy. But now, these unique creatures are very rare, and their numbers have been decreasing in recent years. Yet the natural world we see today is very much different from the one inhabited by our early ancestors. Human beings first appeared around 200,000 years ago. The natural world then was unstable. But then approximately 10,000 years ago, something truly remarkable happened. The climate stabilized. The natural systems that we were living in, filled with billions of individuals of millions of different plants and animal species. It was this that made the ecosystem resilient and gave us the services of nature that we rely upon. But things have changed since then. We have moved from a small species on a big planet to a species so dominant that our impacts rival the forces of nature. We must keep in mind that Earth is a living planet. It operates just like a living, breathing organism. Its habitats are made of countless different species, working like its organs, each with a different role to play in keeping the planet healthy. Our planet's poles act like an air conditioning system, reflecting sunlight away from the planet to keep it cool. The sea ice works like a soil harboring algae, which underpin the hugely productive food chains in the cold oceans. Freshwater systems transport life-giving water and nutrients throughout the landscape, crisscrossing its surface like the arteries and veins in a body. Immense forests straddling the globe, and trillions of microscopic floating plants in the surface of our oceans. Coastal mangroves and coral reefs act like breakwaters, protecting the land behind from the eroding waves and creating the perfect nurseries for juvenile fish. And jungles pile plant upon plant to capture as much as of sun's energy as possible. The water and oxygen produced in this process reaches far beyond the forests. But for any one of these biomes to work, the plants, animals, fungi and microbes within them must all play their part. Only as a chain can the living world work its magic.
Hi guys, now this is a male slow worm here. Look at him. First ever one this year. He's in the sun, so he's basking actually on my hand. Look at him. He's just beautiful. He's beautiful. Oh, I love him. Now look at that head. He's got a reddish gold eye. He's amazing. So, and why are these so important? That's because actually if farmers actually grow crops and slugs and snails eat them, these are a good thing to have in your garden because they eat slugs, snails, worms, they eat all of that stuff.
The creatures that have evolved on our planet each have an important role to play in the web of life, and each is as important as the other.
Hi, I'm Freya and I'm 12 years old. My parents have always inspired me to love the natural world. Nature and the wildlife that inhabits this wonderful planet inspires me every day. But the creatures that perk my interest the most are moths and butterflies. The enchanting lepidoptera that often appear in fairy tales, some flying in the day and some at night. However, there's much more to moths and butterflies than that. They're indicators of the health of an area, food for so many birds and bats that rely on them, and so much more. I love to rear moth and butterfly caterpillars, as it helps our population and helps loads of other wildlife that depends on them for food. I got inspired to continue my parents' lepidoptera rearing because of a female buffermine who came to visit our garden one day. It was my first time rearing moths, and it really touched my heart watching them grow to each instar of their life cycle. The world would be a much different place without moths and butterflies, so we must cherish them and help all the wildlife we can. It might be a small step, but now more than ever the Earth needs us, and what matters most is how we resolve the problems we caused in the first place, by standing up and using our voice that is just as powerful as our actions.
The evolution of our planet's biodiversity gave us the stability we needed. And no species on Earth has benefited more from this fact than us, humans. The whole planet evolved to work together. But as Earth's biodiversity drops, things we all have been taking for granted start to disappear. Clean air and water, the food we eat, the soil it grows in, a stable climate, productive seas.
We are all protected by nature and provides us with majority of the things we need. Life has been evolving for nearly 4 billion years, and we have managed to diminish the life evolving in just a few thousand years. But it is still not too late. If we all work together as individuals, we can save the planet and the unique creatures living in it. We also need to educate the younger generations as they carry the future of our planet. However, the natural world is in danger. There is an imminent threat of extinction for more than 1 million species worldwide. As a result, species are going extinct more rapidly than ever before, and the natural systems that support life on Earth are eroding at an astonishing rate.
Just over the past 50 years, we have embarked on an exponential rise of unsustainable exploitations of resources, unsustainable pressures on the planet, which has now reached such magnitudes that science concludes that we have become our own geological epoch. Welcome to the Anthropocene, the age of humans. We are now the dominant force of change on the planet. 3/4 of the land surface and 2/3 of the oceans are impacted by our activities. Our poles are losing their ice. In summer, there was 40% less Arctic sea ice cover than there was in 1980.
Hi there, my name is Mario. My friends and my family call me Moti, and so can you. Another thing they call me is Animal Expert. I'm not so sure if I'll ever be able to get the title Animal Expert because there's so much to learn about them. But one thing I do know is that I love animals and they need us more than we need them. Thanks to my expat family and my dad's job as a pilot, I've been and lived in some of the world's wildest countries, including Japan, China, the Middle East, and the US. And while I was in those countries, they opened my mind to the culture, the heritage, and the amazing animals that live there. And I've witnessed so many different things in my 12 years of being alive. I've been to South Africa and seen elephants, rhinos, a whole pride of lions. I've swam with whale sharks. I've been to the wild and the cold mountains of Serbia. I've been to many, many, many different places, and there's still so much more I want to do and raise awareness about some of the world's most endangered animals, including the axolotl salamander, the Bengal tiger, and even the vaquita porpoise.
Nature is indeed a place of wonders, and a place that inspires us all, and a place that we must understand its importance and protect it.
I want to protect nature because it's just beautiful, and whenever you're sad, it just makes you feel better. I want to protect nature because it's super inspiring and super beautiful. I love everything super, and I love lots of things like ferns and trees, and I like them all around me. I like the leaves, the trees, and the seas. And I really love nature and I want to protect it because it's super inspiring.
But if we take action, the natural world can recover. It is an extraordinary power of regeneration that I myself have seen. So if we act now, there is still hope.
Now, I want you to come along with me because together we can speak up for those who can't speak for themselves.
We always protect nature!
We all must spend time with nature and explore with nature. And that is when we will truly understand the importance of nature.
So let us all start to
Save our planet!
we have to understand that we are all in this together. And together we all stand, keeping the wild alive and becoming the heroes of our living planet.